So our next score in this journey through Patreon evaluations is by Vili, and it is just really, it's a lot like Tristan's score in a way, although sounding nothing like it in terms of having enormous amounts of professional polish. This is a score that I think, just once again, just like Tristan's score or perhaps my score as well, and a couple of others, Nicholas Kingman and one or two others that you will have seen. It just really has, the essence of just really, a very familiar grasp. Just very secure decisions and excellent choices and actually a lot of fun applied here to the approach. So let's have a listen to it so you see what I mean, and then we'll come back and take a look at some of these sections closer, and I'll talk about, there might be one or two little things that I might disagree with or want a slight change to, but it really holds together. So let's have that listen. So, as you can see, it's just a very dynamic, very colorful score with lots of little subtleties here and there. So, let's back up a little. Now, as you probably noticed, the tempo there was pretty darn fast. And if you look at the hidden text here, Vili has got it at quarter note equals 220. Now, I don't think I went above 189. So, pretty much faster than I've heard it performed or performed it myself as a pianist. And, still, it, by upping the tempo that fast, it becomes less of a pastiche of Ravel working from Borodin's material, in a sort of a kind of a Russian way. And it becomes more Viennese, it just really feels like a very vigorous Viennese dance with the, lots of, throwing of the partner into the air and lots of just very, very fast motion on the floor. And, lots of cool little touches here at the beginning. We've got a solo violin playing this, and then, of course, the rest, Gli Altri, playing pizzicato. We've got Divisi, half pizzicato, half arco on the cellos. I think somebody asked a question about that recently of dividing pizzicato and arco in the lower strings on the Facebook group. And, nicely proportioned, little tiny bits, like little celesta line here. And did you notice that that in the mock-up, which is actually this score is built to not only sound realistic with orchestra, good with orchestra, but realistic on Note Performer. I think we both have the same version of Note Performer, and I actually ran it through mine and realized that the mock-up tracks that Vili had sent me were actually also Note Performer because there was just no difference. So little touches here. Wish the score was a little shorter. Of bassoon, rising, little touches here, English horn, B flat clarinet, and then the balance was so beautifully worked out that the harp really stood out here in terms of its phrasing. Now, I'm not going to raise a big ruckus over the dynamics here. I think some of this could be simplified or is simpler than appears. Do you know what I mean? But I will respect Vili's choices and not make a big deal about all the different dynamic levels. But I do feel that some of this could be simplified into more general markings that would end up having the same effect in a live situation. But other than that, I'm not going to bother commenting on it. Nice little rush up here, two flutes and cor anglais, an octave lower, and then of course celesta doubling the flutes at pitch up there. Yeah, so this is really fun. Yeah, so triangle. This is if I'm not mistaken, this is a stopped triangle. So the percussionist is grasping the triangle after each strike to mute the sound, and then or to stop the sound to damp it, and then the little zero means to let it hold, and of course you can see the little tie. Snare drum, nice little effects, and yeah, and so here we go into the second iteration of the main theme, which is taken over by oboe with little touches of piccolo coming in an octave higher. I think that's just a really lovely effect. It sort of like gives a little bit of shine to the oboe sound. And without really obtruding too much, right? So if you have this mezzo forte, a solo espressivo, which, there could have been a little bit more nuances marked here, but the faster you go with your tempo, the less that is crucial, but still, would have liked to have seen a few, but it's okay. I would actually say marking this piano will probably get the best effect, because then this will tend to sort of glitter above the oboe and have the least chance of just really sticking out, just kind of awkwardly just pushing itself into the sound picture. Now here, this is cool. I would actually just say probably easier to get a nice seamless overlap on a single note, sort of obeying the more Rimsky-Korsakov approach. But that's all right. Cor anglais, octaves with the flutes. That's kind of nice. Sort of flipping the script on this a little bit. And yeah, and then just this little touch of piccolo. It's just very charming. And this little, bass clarinet pedal tone right in here. So yeah, so this is all just very, very delicious, and nicely written harp part. Okay, so now let's move on to the first statement. And this really reminded me a bit of Danse Macabre, of having so many solo violin statements with important material, along to a brisk waltz, right? And you sort of this is sort of reminiscent there. Okay, and this should be all right. These flutes in here. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything that is unlikely. I like the way that the horns are kept well under control here. That's lovely. Just another thing, I will make one more comment about the multiplicity of different dynamic markings on the same page, and that is that the what you run into is the conductor having to explain the fact that maybe somebody who is close by another musician will be at a different level, or that that one section is largely one dynamic and the other section is the other, right? So that the players don't blend. Like, for instance, here we've got the string section pianissimo, we've got the soloist mezzo forte. Now that's okay, but then we've got mezzo piano, largely mezzo piano in the winds, and with the occasional even piano dynamic and sort of a more distant horn effect right here. So some of this might require a little bit of explaining if things didn't appear to balance to the conductor, because people don't know what is on each other's stands, right? So it's just something to think about. I think there could be an approach taken here with a more simplified dynamics, but like I said, I don't want to really get into it too much. It's really not worth working about. This is a very well crafted score, and I've mentioned it on other scores, so let's not worry about it too much here. But yeah, I mean it can also work the way that it's scored without too much muss or fuss. Okay, I don't feel that this tone is going to come through very loud, and indeed, in a thicker tutti, mezzo forte and above, if you have forte piano accents, that are above this tone on the celesta, then you just will not hear this note. And in fact, I think that was borne out a little bit. Also, the harp notes below did not quite balance with the rest of the score. But a very small concern, but still. Yeah. Then harp, cor anglais, clarinets, all swooping up to this big high point. Yeah. If you just want to throw in these low notes, even though they're inaudible, that's fine. I would tend to just, seeing as how it's such an enormous tutti, flutes, both flutes, oboe, and clarinet, one. These two first notes are going to be superfluous. Now, you might want to just start on them, even if they're inaudible anyways, just so that the instrument sweeps through its possible range, and that's fine. But I tend to try to avoid adding anything that's not that if anything won't be heard, I just tend to leave it out. Okay, I like the phrasing that I'm seeing on, it is, for the most part, it's very thoughtful. The slurring, bowing approaches that I'm seeing on the melodic content is very nicely done. Okay, so we're heading towards the appassionato allargando in some scores. And, this is good. A nice frenzied build-up. This is the way to do it, right? Notice that things are building up, and there really isn't even a crescendo here. You could have added crescendo right in here, but you want that stop, which is also very Viennese, right? And that's one of those things that comes up when you really jack the tempo upwards, when you increase the tempo seriously in a work like this to just a frenzied waltz. Then you need little gaps, little breaths, little stops in certain points to where, say, you lift the partner and just toss her up in the air or whatever, and then grab her on the way back down. Those things are really built into the style. I still think there could have been a little bit of maybe a crescendo and accent there to give more guidance to the dancers, since this really is kind of a dance. And then it would also kick this off. This is the dancer flying into the air, isn't it? Right? Okay. The only thing that I would say about this right here is the big octave strings, plus the flute, might be giving away a little too much of the approach to come, right? To try not to have, to try to have more variety of approach between little segments. But, it's going so fast. The music is going so fast here that it's really is something that most people will not even notice, right? Okay, so how is this all constructed? It's really worth breaking down. Lower divisi cellos playing the bass line, along with, the top note is unison with the top divisi contrabass. And the rest of the strings are playing a 4-octave melodic statement, and that melodic statement is doubled by celesta, glockenspiel with brass mallets. It's kind of fun. A lot of times the glock will just be played with a brass mallet because it gets a really beautiful little ting sound. But there are a number of different mallets that you can use that of different density and different hardness. And then a lot of winds here. Oboe, cor anglais, an octave below that, doubled by the second clarinet. And that's it, pretty much. So, this is the point at which if you had a piccolo, this would be a good place to put it, right? But you don't, so you didn't. That's fine. Now, here is where I'm wondering whether or not one of the flutes could be spared to play along with the top line of the melody in the strings. Reason for that is that we've got flute 2 on the second octave down, and we also have first clarinet, right? So we have a doubling here, which in both cases is so strong, right, that you could have easily left one out. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you could have stuck this line on the second flute and then had the first flute play this little piece of melody supporting the second violins, just for a little bit more stability on that. And also there's a big emphasis on the counter melody here, which is pretty big. It's so A2 horns, trumpet, trombone, both flutes and first clarinet. So it is quite a heavy presence there. So another reason why I wonder whether or not some of the winds could not have been parceled out to double the melody in a couple of places. But it's okay. I mean, it ended up sounded good. If anything, actually, the melody sounded very weighty, and that was because of the quadruple octave. I think almost cutting out the fourth voice of the melody would have lightened up the sense of solidity of this big melody here. And also, like, when you have a quadruple octave like this, the overtones start to stack up, and I could really feel the presence, the pushing of the lower notes upon the upper ones in terms of the weight of the overtones, right? So it made it feel a little organ-like. So if you wanted to avoid that, I would say watch out for quadruple octaves. Okay, and I really love the way that you really calm the music down very, very abruptly. Okay, and also the balance in between winds, strings, and brass. That was really well done. Very logical and simple, and worked beautifully. So, good choice. Horn right in there to bring things down, doubling the second violins at an octave below. Okay, and then this is nice too. Cello solo. So it's a good contrast between the two, even though these are essentially in the same register. You know, these two statements, the horns and then the cello solo. But still, it does feel different because of the drop of an octave from the top voice. Yeah. And then just sticking with the solo cello for a little while, echoing in the first violin solo. And then we get to our little contrast. Bassoons and horns, very Russian sound, along with solo second violin, which may not actually... it will come through, but the bassoonist might be asked to drop into the background a little. Or you could even say F espressivo here, okay, to get a better punch right there. Or the concertmaster might actually want to play that to sort of stay out in front more. So just, little choices. Then the echo, celesta, which I thought was just beautiful, along with first flute. Okay, and then we have our little diving theme. Oboe to clarinet, to horn, to cor anglais, to second clarinet, and then bassoon. And then, non troppo piano. That was great. And then down to this. I really like this. Yeah. And, this all worked well together. the celesta climbing along with the tremolo artificial harmonics. So yeah, well done. Yeah, you know, and I actually sort of wonder, this is going to be really fast. Yep, up, 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 and it's possible on cellos, but it's just going to be really. This is going to be probably a slight hell for those players, but not too bad. But it'll be, they'll be thinking about this as they come up on it. So yeah, I almost wonder if the harp isn't just enough there, marked up to forte. So forte here, mezzo piano there. And then this is interesting that you don't die away softly, to like piano then pianissimo, but you basically keep your own counsel here in terms of what the proportions are. I also thought that was a very wise choice. And then just throwing in clarinets and bassoon with tuba and horns to be the chord that fills in along with these other strings. But there still isn't the sense of continuity through, right? Right? Da, do, 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 dee, holding that, and then adding the others. I almost wonder whether or not, like, a couple of these pitches could have just held through, and then the second violins have played this as divisi, right? So it's just a thought. But look, it's what I love about this challenge is that how I can take a score like this, which has like almost no problems in it, and still discuss finer points, right? And that can be educational at any level, right? And then take a score that, somebody that may have less experience, but, maybe no less talent than me, but they just are not that far along the road yet, and to be able to push them towards this direction. So yeah, keep in mind, just one last thing I'd want to say about this is that, as I've mentioned in other places, when Ravel was offered the chance to have a book on orchestration published, he was approached by publishers saying, look, just write a book on orchestration, we'll publish it. And he said, look, I'm not interested in that, but I wouldn't mind a book that I would write about all the mistakes that I made as an orchestrator. And that just really kind of shows that it doesn't matter how great you are as an orchestrator, there's always going to be something that people are going to question, take issue with, suggest alternate things, have different ideas about doing, even if your idea is completely perfect and has no problems whatsoever. There will still be people who want to change things around, comment, and so on and so forth. One last thing to say on this score is I applaud the way that D major was used here, transposed up from the original D flat major key. I thought that it was just really justified by all the choices that were made here. So great work, Vili. It's, you have been a contributor to other challenges like this, and I've always enjoyed your scores, and I hope to see more of them again if you have time to do them. So thank you for that. Thank you for your participation in the group, and now on to the next score.